What are some of the greatest misconceptions about leadership from your perspective?
I think that some people think that the harder you are, the firmer you are, the better you are.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, because if you go back to the story I just told about the three-star general, he inspired us. He didn't have to do very much except point in a direction, and I say, that's the direction I want this ship to go, to use a Navy metaphor. And the rest of us understood exactly what he needed because he was clear, he was concise, and he told us what the expectations were. And like I said, all of us wanted to get up and make sure that not only did we succeed, but the organization and his success was our success. And that's the kind of effective leader I think that many organizations hope for, but don't always have.
True.
One other story, if I may, to illustrate this point. I think character is probably the most important leadership trait there is. And that's the reason it's chapter 1 in my book. The title of the chapter is Character, Leadership's Basic Building Block. I was sent by the Marine Corps. I worked for the Marine Corps for 9 years as a senior executive, and I was sent to the Marine Corps by the Marine Corps to a course called Leadership at the Peak. It was about a 4.5-day course, and it was all about self-awareness. And there were only 12 students in the course. All of them were C-suite executives, CEOs, COOs, CIOs, and the like, except for me. I was the only federal employee in the entire course. So the other 11 students were in their 40s and their 50s, were either leading companies or very, very senior in companies. And in the run-up to that course, they had us doing all kinds of self-awareness tests and evaluations. One of them was a 360-degree evaluation where we were to ask our subordinates, our coworkers, and our boss to assess us anonymously and tell us in the survey exactly what they thought of us. So when we got there on the very first day, they turned to a board on the wall and they said, "You'll see up there a graph posted showing the results of these surveys that you did as students and that your contemporaries, your coworkers, and your boss did." There were no names on them at the time. But as we all looked at that, what I saw were probably 8 or 9 of the charts that I was looking at had a great disparity between the way the student viewed themselves and the way the rest of their organization viewed themselves, and not in a good way. In almost every case, these individual students thought more of themselves than their contemporaries and their subordinates thought of them. And so it was a wake-up call for them. And it was the next 3.5 to 4 days was all about peeling that onion back, figuring out, why do we have this gap between the way others view you and the way you view you? When you look in the mirror, you need to make sure that you see yourself in the same mold that others see you if you're going to be an effective leader. Because if you don't, you're an emperor with no clothes on.
That is so true.
So when I was a company commander, and for your listening audience, a company is about anywhere from, let's say, 60 to 150 soldiers. I didn't really need to spend a lot of time with these soldiers, convincing them of how I thought, what I thought was important, the direction we need to go, because I was with them every single day. But the more senior you become in an organization, whether it's in the military or in the corporate world, it doesn't matter. The more you need to reflect on, how am I going to communicate the direction I want this organization to go? And so when I became a battalion commander, I had 1,000 soldiers. And those 1,000 soldiers would rotate in and out of the organization every 2 to 3 years. So I would get new soldiers every single month. And at that point in time in the military, we write down what we call our philosophy of command. And the philosophy of command is kind of like a corporate vision statement and a values statement. It's sort of the same thing. Anybody that reads my book will find that philosophy of command, which I wrote in 1989 in my book. It's Appendix A. And it basically lays out for the organization, here's the direction I want you to go. And here are those things that I view as very, very important, and some things that are negotiable. Let me read the first and a couple of sentences on the first page. It says, as I join the 2nd Battalion, 10th Cavalry, I owe it to each of you to describe in some detail my philosophy of command. These basic beliefs and values have developed and grown throughout my 16 years in the Army. If you understand the thrust of this memo, you will understand me. And then it goes on, and I lay it out. Now, when I wrote that down in 1989, this is before the days of computers and word processing and all that. It was on a legal pad. And I then typed it up, and I sent it out to probably 12 or 15 different people that knew me very, very well. And I said, this is how I think that I think. I would ask for you to be very candid and provide me feedback. Am I kidding myself, or is this a true reflection of me? And I got some good feedback from all those people that I trusted. And so I did a little bit of editing, but at the end of the day, when I got that thing done, I handed it out to all the leaders in my organization on the very first day, and I had a meeting with them. I said, let me tell you a little bit about me, and let me tell you about the direction I want this organization to go, what I think is important, what's non-negotiable, and let me even tell you about my strengths and weaknesses. And I did that on the very first day. And then every single month when we had newcomers coming into the organization, I would assemble the newcomers, and I would go through the standards pitch again, doing essentially the same thing. And then I would hand out my philosophy of command to each of those new people. Everybody knew from the very beginning exactly who I was and the direction I wanted the organization to go. And I guess I would ask your listeners to ask themselves, have you ever worked for somebody that comes into the organization and 2 or 3 months later you're still trying to figure them out, what they think is important and what isn't? And so I think an effective leader does that very, very early on to make sure everybody is very, very clear on where we're headed.